Hello and welcome to Wisdom and Productivity, the podcast of Dr. Efraim Martinez. I am a principal in search of wisdom, and I have found productivity to be a great tool for success. Today's episode is titled Elevating Educational Leadership Through Dale Carnegie's Principles, Part 2. Today, we will explore how principals can apply Dale Carnegie's principles in a school context. His principles for winning people to your way of thinking are like a handbook for effective leadership. Let's break them down one by one with real life examples of school principles. Number one, the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Imagine a situation where two teachers disagree about the best approach to teaching a challenging topic. As a principal, you can intervene by facilitating a calm discussion, encouraging both teachers to share their perspectives and find common ground to solutions that benefit the students. Let me give you an example. I was a principal and had a very liberal teacher and a very conservative teacher. The liberal teacher was very outspoken about LGBTQ plus issues, and the very conservative teacher was completely against them. They got in an altercation during a meeting, and they both sat in my office. And then, as the principal, I had to make sure to properly intervene. So, what is the best way to solve this solution is to avoid the argument. Let everybody speak their truth. Let everybody understand where people are coming from and try to find common ground in things that they agree. In this case, both teachers, the liberal and the conservative, agreed that they both meant well and they were coming from good places. They told about their past to each other and they understood that the way they were offending the other. They agree on getting together, and today they are some of the best friends. All because someone was able to get in the middle, and the principal usually plays as the referee, plays as the coach of the team. And it's important to try to avoid the issues, the arguments, I'm sorry. Principle number 2, show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say, you are wrong. Suppose a parent expresses concerns about the school disciplinary policies. Instead of dismissing their worries, you can acknowledge their viewpoint, thank them for sharing it, and promise to consider their input in the ongoing policy review. So this often happens, the example is that often happens when you had to do that first phone call about someone's baby, someone's child, and you call and you say, ma'am, dad, mom, grandma, your child did this thing and caused this stir. And the parent might say, no, my baby will never do that. What did the other child do? Why is the teacher opposed to you? Or worse, when they blame the principal on being against this child. This is why it's so important that we have systems to track the behavior of the students. This can be locally made or they can be systems like Swiss. It's important to document because after you listen to this parent to express that their baby will never do that, one can say, I can tell how much you love your child and how you are surprised by this behavior, but let me show you evidence that this is an ongoing issue. And in that moment, you are not telling the parent they are wrong. You are just introducing them to open that door to see the reality. Because once the parent understands what is really going on, they can properly support their child. So remember, never tell anyone they are wrong, because if so, they will fight you to the end. Just show them the way. Number 3, if you are wrong, admit it empathetically. Imagine a school principal implementing a new classroom technology usage policy without sufficient consultation with teachers. After implementing the policy, it becomes evident that it is causing classroom disruption and is hindering effective teaching. Rather than defending your decision or blame others, admit the mistake openly. Involve teachers in revising the approach and demonstrate that you value their expertise. So the real life example is that you're gonna make mistakes, Mr. and Miss Principal. You are gonna say things. You're going to implement policies that at the end don't work out. That at the end end up offending others. And you have to be transparent enough to admit when you are wrong and do it emphatically. You need to precisely express how wrong you were, what you should have done, and what you are going to do to fix it, to approach it. And the best approach is getting together with your team, because at the end of the day, the principal is the anesthesiologist to the surgeon, and the surgeon being the teacher. The teacher is the expert. Remember that. You are the coach that via the periphery can provide support and how to do things and tweak things to the better improvement of all. And talking about improvement, let's celebrate the Teach Better community.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. Now let's get back to the episode.
Principle number 4, begin in a friendly way. When addressing a room full of teachers and staff about a challenging budget cut, start by expressing gratitude for their dedication and commitment. Show empathy for their challenges due to the cuts, and convey your confidence in their ability to adapt. Let me give you an example. When I was a principal in Chicago Public Schools, there was an era that is probably still existing where you had to do tons of budget cuts. You have to cut people's positions. We are talking about the livelihood of people. And this was quite difficult, because what good principals do is that they end up truly and sincerely caring for the people they lead. So when you have to do these hard decisions that sooner or later you will have to do, begin in a friendly way. Express how difficult and how much you understand how complicated these situations are, and ensure that you properly support the people that will be impacted. For example, if there's someone's position that you need to cut, or someone who cannot be renewed, make sure that you support them by letting them know that you are going to be on their side, that you can serve as a reference, that you can write awesome letters of recommendations, that you will give call and receive calls to ensure this person ends up properly employed elsewhere. Remember, when you do good things happen. Principle number 5, get the other person saying yes, yes, immediately. Imagine a principal who wants to introduce a new school uniform policy. Instead of imposing it, the principal starts by saying, don't we all want our students to feel equal and focus on learning? This approach gets teachers and parents saying yes immediately to the idea of fairness and a conducive learning environment. Then, the principal proceeds to discuss the details of the policy while keeping this positive momentum. So, let me give you a specific example that happened to me. I am on my second year as a school principal, and in the school that I am leading, the students had to wear uniforms, and boys had to wear ties. Uh, the kids were uncomfortable with it. They didn't like them. They were taking off the ties all the time. There was a lot of expression of we should not do this. Kids requested it. So when I went to my board, my local school council, to change this, I was immediately encountered with a no. And no matter what, I dedicated myself to say, this policy is going to change. So instead of focusing in getting people to say yes, yes, I went the hard way. And once the new local council won, the first voting that we did was changing the uniform. And yes, I accomplished what was the right thing. That was us changing the uniforms. Students were getting hurt because, for example, when they were playing tag, a student was in a monkey bar and another student grabbed by the tie and a student fell head first. So when things like this happen, the principal must act to bring what is better for the school. But instead of me of proposing things in a way that will make people say yes, yes, because they make common sense and they're beneficial for everyone, I went at it. I convinced the new local school council. We voted for a yes. Oh, and what a big headache because I offended many people who saw the uniform as something institutional. Eventually, the uniform changed and nobody thought about it. But in that moment, I could have avoided tons of headaches by ensuring that I began with doing things that would make people say yes, yes, immediately. Principle number 6. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. In a staff meeting, encourage teachers to share their experience. You foster a collaborative atmosphere and gain valuable insights by actively listening and allowing them to voice their challenges and successes. So one of the best things I have done recently, and I learned this from Principal Jim Pluscoda in Elmer's 205, was that begin the year with a list of your expectations towards the teachers. Arrive on time, assume best intentions, give 1%, and all that kind of good stuff. But then in a Jamboard, the teachers were divided in random groups and they were able to write down what were the expectations towards me, right? The teachers were able to collaborate together and then tell me what were the expectations. Be respectful, be sincere, have our back, and all that kind of good stuff that got the whole team together, the team and I, on the same page of what is expected. And because people were able to express what is that they wanted, and you as the principal have to ensure that you are providing that on a daily basis, then you get the good results that you are aiming for. Principle number 7. Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. Suppose you want to implement a mentorship program for struggling students. Instead of dictating the plan, ask teachers for their input, allowing them to shape the program. This gives them a sense of ownership and commitment. So the example that comes to mind about this is the example of creating a master schedule. Usually, a principal or other educational leader sits down over the summer over many hours and creates the schedule without asking anyone. I remember my first year as a principal, I sat down with the newly appointed AP and we put a big piece of paper and we had figurines with people's pictures to create a schedule that made sense. That was a lot of work. And it meant that we had to change the schedule several times. So, how do you avoid this? Is that you have to let the people feel that is their idea and do it sincerely. So, you create a committee of the masterminds, you classroom teachers, special teachers, specialist teachers, uh, some of the supporting staff, someone from the office. You get all these people to bring their minds together and create a schedule that people take ownership, because it is idea that it has come from them as a group, as a unit, and then you get the result that you want. Principle number 8: try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. When dealing with a concerned parent who disagrees with a disciplinary decision, take a moment to empathize with their perspective. Consider the unique circumstances and work together to find a fair resolution. So think about the student who is bullied or the student who is bullying other people. More often than not, there's a story behind that child's attitude. Me growing up, whenever I would act up in school, I would get in a fight. It was something that I was certainly bringing back from home, a frustration that I was not able to express, and I will express it with misbehavior and sometimes violent misbehavior. So often, the quote that educators need to remember is this: hell is the inability to love. Many of the children who come to school who are bullying, they have a lot of discomfort. They are craving attention. They are craving love that sometimes there's a lack of it or there's not to the maximum. So please consider that there's always a story behind it. So please make sure that you always put yourself in the shoes of other people in order to truly understand and better support them. Principle number 9: be sympathetic with the other person's ideas and desires. Imagine a teacher proposing a new extracurricular club. Even if it is not aligned with your initial plans, show support for their initiative and work together to find a way to make it happen, demonstrating your commitment to their growth. Recently, there was some funds for extracurricular activities after school, and a person that was in charge of a running club said that they couldn't do it anymore because it was too much for one person. So they proposed, what if there's two people running the club? My initial reaction was, no, it's for one person and one person only. So if you cannot do the club, then I'm sorry, but it cannot happen. But then I started thinking, you know, this person really wants to make the difference, but they know that they cannot be as effective if they do it by themselves. So at the end of the day, that also benefits the students because many of children don't have opportunities after school to do any activities unless the school hosts them. So I inquire and ask several people, pick up the phone, and guess what? I was able to bring a second person with not only one but two stipends for equal amount of work. And those students are going to benefit now thanks to that educator in the building who inquired and said, hey, I have an idea. And I was able to listen to them in a sympathetic way and support them. So not only them, but also the students could benefit. Principle number 10: appeal to the nobler motives. When addressing a group of students about the importance of community service, emphasize how their contributions can positively impact other lives, connecting their actions to a greater sense of purpose and social responsibility. So the example that came to mind was when I was a school principal in a prior district. I was in a brand new school building. It was, in fact, at some point within the last 3 years, the most modern school building in the entire state of Illinois. But kids are kids, and there were a group of kids who were doing graffiti and putting holes in sofas that the in furniture that were around the building, and that was looked terrible. I felt awful. Immediately, the reaction was like, "Hey, something has to happen in order for us to improve the situation." So what we did is that we appealed to the nobler motives. We got together and we did a campaign for everybody to take care of our building and explain how awesome and how fortunate we were that we were in a beautiful building. And guess what? People started saying to the other people, stop doing that. Don't do that. Or anonymous emails started arriving saying, hey, so and so is the one doing such an activity. And that event of vandalizing the building greatly extinguished. We were not able to completely eliminate it, but a great effort was done because we were able to appeal to the nobler motives. Principle 11, dramatize your ideas. Picture this. You want to inspire students to embrace innovative teaching methods. Instead of presenting dry statistics, share success stories of other schools that have seen remarkable improvements through similar methods, creating excitement and motivation. So the example that came to mind was that we presented to the leadership team the idea of 1% improvements. And instead of just telling them, you need to do better, we read an article of a fragment from Atomic Habits on how to, and seeing examples on how other organizations have used this concept of marginal gains to get the successes that they were aiming for. And they give the example of the British cycling team who have never won anything, and they get this coach who start improving things. And for example, they put better oil in the bikes, better tires. They even use better pillows for the cyclists, depending on the ones that they needed per their body needs. And every time they started getting better, and through the years, they won all the prizes. So I could have just tell them this, but we read an article to conceptualize and let everybody think about how they can apply this to their own teaching life. And those innovations are things that allow you to dramatize the idea so it stays in the mindset of everyone as the year goes by. Principle number 12, throw down a challenge. Suppose you notice a decline in student engagement. Challenge your teaching staff to come up with creative solutions to rekindle students' passions for learning. Encourage them to take ownership of this challenge and provide necessary support for their ideas. So, very simple. If you want to bring enthusiasm to your school, throw out the challenge of having teams design their own assembly. What is that they want to see that will motivate and encourage the students to do better? When you allow the team to get together and collectively merge their talents and what they can do better than you, then the school will get the results that you are looking for. Dale Carnegie's principles can be your compass for effective school leadership. These real-life examples illustrate how applying these principles can create a positive and collaborative educational environment. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Wisdom and Productivity. We hope these practical examples inspire you to lead with empathy, understanding, and commitment to continuous improvement and 1% marginal gains. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, share, reshare, leave a review. Your feedback helps us in reaching more educational leaders just like you. Until next time, always remember, when we do good things happen.
Thank you for listening to Wisdom and Productivity, the podcast of Dr. Efrain Martinez.
Chulo.
And I love that production. Chill out.